Next in our learning objectives is learning objective 2, comparing and contrasting T and B cells. So we've already talked about some of the differences. You can see those in figure 12.2 that I discussed in learning objective 1.5. And then they've made a big summary of the difference between these two at the end of the chapter in table 12.2. So one of the differences, they're part of different parts of the adaptive immune system. T cells are part of the cellular adaptive immune system, whereas B cells are part of the humoral adaptive immune system. Where they come from, their origin, I should say their maturation. So, where do they mature? T cells are going to mature in the thymus. That's why they're called T cells, because thymus starts with a T. Whereas B cells are going to mature in the bone marrow. And they're called B cells because bone starts with a B. Both of them are going to be found in the lymphatic system. This is where those memory cells are going to reside. So these can also be found in the lymphatic. Those are also where those memory cells are going to reside. Or they can be found circulating through the circulatory system, depending on where they need to go in order to fight a particular reaction. We talked about this in antigen presentation. Remember, T cells are going to need an antigen presentation cell is required, whereas B cells can use APCs or they can find antigens on their own. Another way that they are similar is they both have memory cells, which is something I've already put up there. And how they are identified are what are called major histocompatibility complexes. So I'll come back to that later. But they have certain ID proteins. And those ID proteins are called MHCs, major histocompatibility complexes. Forgot for a minute what the C stood for. So this is shortened as MHC. And like I say, these MHCs, these are identification proteins. It's like different organs will have different proteins on their cells that say, hey, I'm a protein that's only found on a liver cell, or I'm a protein that is only found on a spleen cell. Well, MHC cells are found on every one of your cells, and they identify what are called self cells, and we'll come back to that again. However, T cells will only have MHC1 proteins, whereas B cells will have MHC1 or MHC2 proteins. So there are two different types of proteins that are going to identify your cells from foreign cells or foreign particles. T cells will have one of them. B cells will have two of them.